Okay, class, we're now going to create a child domain. So I booted up the tree DC and the child DC just to make the video a little quicker. So I'm going to sign into the child domain. I'm going to look at my map. I can see that my IP address for this DC should be 172.16.0.4/21, which will be 255.255.248.0. So again, I'm looking at my map, 0.4. I'm going to pause the video for a moment. My screen seems to frozen. Okay, ACIT just kind of wigged out on me, so I opened up an incognito tab or a private tab. If you have that issue, just go into an incognito tab and you should be fine. If you can't see these buttons along the top, adjust your zoom. If I zoom in too much, notice how the buttons disappear. So just zoom to like 80% and they should show up. So I'm going to type in my IP address. Put in my gateway. Now for this third DC, I'm going to point to my first and second DC for name resolution. So 0.2 and 0.3. They know about the forest already. Those two DCs already have DNS set up for Contoso. So if I don't point to them, I'm not going to be able to resolve any names for Contoso.com. If I point to Google's DNS servers, they won't know about Contoso. Okay, I'm going to pause again. Okay, no, I'm not. So I'm going to click change, rename, reboot like normal. Sticking to the naming convention on the map. I'm going to pause the video for a minute. Okay, it's now prompting me to reboot. Press Control-Delete to sign in. So I'm back to the home screen, so I'm going to go back into my lab. I'm going to go back to DC5. Sign back in. When the bar stops moving, I'm going to install the Active Directory software. Active Directory Domain Services. Add the tools. Check restart if needed. Click yes, then install. While that's installing, I'm going to pause the video. Okay, it's done installing, so now I'm going to promote this to a domain controller. So in this case, I'm going to create a new domain. I already have the forest, contoso.com created. It's going to be a child domain. I'll go into that in a little bit. The parent domain will be called contoso.com. And the child domain will be called child. So the fully qualified domain name for this domain will be child.contoso.com. That's why it's a child domain, because the child domain includes the name of the parent domain. Now, whose credentials do I need to supply here? The enterprise admins. Only users that are part of the enterprise admins group can actually create domains. Click next. I'm going to go back to the map. This machine is a global catalog server for this site. Eventually, this machine will be the global catalog server for this site. The global catalog server on this machine will replicate with the global catalog server on this machine. So we need to make sure that we only have one global catalog per site, at least two for the entire forest. I have two, one on this site, one on this site. If I only had one site, I would put them both on the same site. But to create too many global catalog servers, you're just going to be causing yourself a replication headache. So I'm trying to avoid having too many global catalog servers. So I'm going to go back to my machine now. So I'm going to unselect global catalog server because I already have one on DC1. I'm going to type in my restore password that is unique to this domain controller. Now, this box is lit up for the first time. This is the first time you're seeing this where we don't have that yellow error. And so basically, as the enterprise admin, it's going to connect to the DC and create a delegation. Meaning, I don't want my DCs in my root domain, DC1 or DC2, handling the namespace for child.contoso.com. I want DC1 and DC2 to handle the namespace for contoso.com, and I want this machine the child DC to handle the namespace for child.contoso.com. And all I'm talking about is that DNS zone. The problem is this doesn't work 50% of the time. So even though it's checked and this is the first time we're able to see it actually function, it just doesn't work. So what I'm going to do is manually create that delegation. So I'm going to go over to DC1 or DC2, doesn't matter where. I'm going to sign into that domain controller. I'm going to go into DNS, go into the DNS utility, the reverse, if you notice that the reverse is going to go to all DCs in the forest. The forward lookup zone, Contoso.com, is only going to get replicated to DCs in Contoso.com. So this namespace isn't going to be replicated to any of the other DCs, only the DCs in the parent domain. So what I'm going to do is expand this, right click, create a new delegation. I want to delegate the child namespace called child.contoso.com, and I'm going to add a server. That server's name is going to be child dc5.child, that'll be the domain name, contoso.com. This is the stupidest button in the world. There's a button called resolve. Who resolves names? DNS. What are you in the middle of setting up? DNS. So you're not going to be able to connect to a DNS server that you're setting up to resolve that name. So we're not going to click the resolve because it won't work. Because the namespace, we're creating it right now. So I'm going to type in the IP address for that machine. So this will be the fully qualified domain name once it gets set up. But for right now, it's not really configured. So the host name will be child-dc5. We entered that when we set up the computer name. The domain name that it's part of will be child.contoso.com. And the IP address is actually 0.4. So I'm going to go to my map to look at that. That's the IP. 0.4 is going to be child-dc5.child.contoso.com. I'll click OK. Click Next, then Finish. In reality, this should have been automatic. We shouldn't have had to do this, but the problem is it just doesn't work. I know it doesn't work. It hasn't worked since 2012, so I stopped playing around with it, hoping that it someday will work. So I'm going back to my child DC. So if you check this box and you sign in with the enterprise admin user account, it should work, but it doesn't most of the time. I'm going to click Next. It's going to come up with the NetBIOS name for the domain, which should be child. Here's the paths where it's going to store everything. Review, prereq check. install. And now I'm going to pause the video. Okay, the second DC, the child DC is up and running, so I'm going to sign in. Now, if I sign in with this account, remember, I'm only going to be the child admin, the child domain admin. I won't be able to manipulate the entire force with this account, which is fine. If I wanted to do something that's going to affect multiple domains, I want to make sure I sign in with Contoso /administrator. I'm going to pause the video for a moment. Okay, I was just waiting for that blue bar to stop along the top. So I'm going to go to Tools, Active Directory Users and Computers. Now, you can see in this console, it's automatically connected me to the child DC. If I wanted to, I connect to any DC I want. So if I go to change domain controllers, I can jump over to any DC that I want. And right now it's only showing me DCs that are part of the child domain. If I wanted to connect to a different domain, I can right click here, change domains. And I can browse whatever domain I want to connect to. The problem is if I connect to Contoso right now, I won't be able to do anything because I'm signed in with the child domain admin. I have no rights over the Contoso domain. If I signed in as the Contoso admin, I would have rights to all domains because I would be the enterprise admin. It's really important you understand what authority you have with which user account. Enterprise admin can do anything to any domain. Domain admin can only make changes to the domain that they're the domain admin to. Also, please note that when I go into the user container, I don't have an enterprise admin or schema admin position group here rather. That's only in the parent domain. I'm also going to go to DNS. Sorry. If I go to forward lookup, I can see I have the child domain here. And if I go into reverse, I can see that I have the reverse zone. Remember, the reverse zone gets copied to all domain controllers regardless of the domain. For this child, it's only going to be copied to other domain controllers in the same domain. So right now I'm going to click change. It's only going to be, I'm going to change it. So it's only going to go to domain controllers in the child domain. This is essentially the same thing, but for compatibility reasons, they put 2000 compatibility. I don't need to worry about that because all my servers are at least 2019. Sorry, I'm going to go back in and click OK. Again, I'm getting an error. It's a replication error. Come back in a few minutes and this will clear itself up. So I'm just going to press cancel for right now. There's another issue that I haven't gone over yet, and that I'll fix that here in a few minutes, but I can't do it just yet. We need to talk about Operation Master roles, and I can't do it until I get the other DCs on the other side of the site working. So I need to move those around. That's probably causing my issue. So we'll just be patient with that. I'm going to go back to the parent DC, sign in. I'm going to refresh this. And I can see that the parent DC is in control of Contoso.com. I go back to the parent DC. I can see that it's in control of child.contoso.com. I'm going to go to the child DC. I'm going to go to the top, the server, and go to forwarders. So if some client is pointing to this DC for name resolution, and they want to resolve a name for Contoso.com, not child.contoso.com, this child DC will forward all requests to the parent DCs automatically. So this will be able to resolve child.contoso.com. If it doesn't know the answer, it'll send it up to the parent. If the parent doesn't know the answer, it'll send it out to Google. I'm going to go to DC2 in the parent domain. I'm going to sign in. I'm signing in with the enterprise admin. Now, when we set this up, we pointed the DNS client to DC1. And it changed it to add the loopback. I'm going to jump over to DC1 now. Now, when we configured this machine, we pointed this to the two upstreams, 8.8 and 4.4 for DNS. And now, let me go into it. I'm not sure why I took off the gateway. I'm going to put it back. It's now set to the loopback. So what did it do with 8.8 and 4.4? So if I go back to the DNS utility on parent DC1 and look at the forwarders, it now made them forwarders. If I go to DC2, and go into DNS, and look at forwarders, it has the same forwarders. The reason DC2 isn't going to forward to DC1 is because they both have the same information. If DC2 doesn't have the answer, there's no reason to send that request to DC1, because DC1 will have the same answer. It doesn't know. So there's no point on forwarding requests from DC2 to DC1 after both DCs are set up, because they'll have the same information. When you make a change to one, it replicates it to the other. So when I promoted DC2, it's going to copy the forwarders from DC1 over to DC2 and use those as the same forwarders. So basically, if DC1 doesn't know the answer or DC2 doesn't know the answer, it's going to send it to the two upstream servers. There's no reason to send it to each other. I just wanted to point that out. Okay, so right now we have our root domain set up and we have one child domain set up. The root domain has two domain controllers and the child domain only has one domain controller. So far for this site, which is the West site, we only have one global catalog server, which is on DC1. DC1 and 2 control the namespace contoso.com, and DC5 controls the namespace child.contoso.com. If DC5 gets a request that it doesn't know the answer to, it will send it to DC1 or 2. If DC1 or 2 gets a request that it doesn't know about, it will send it to Google. Okay, that's it for this video.